Good morning, everybody. I'm Amy, Fiber Arts Amy, here on Instagram. I actually just thought, kind of on a whim, that I would film another stitch with me. I still don't have a great, filming setup for this. I would love to figure out a way where, you can see the stitching better. And I think I have an idea for how to do that, but I can't do my idea while I'm stitching on this piece, because this piece is using the stand that I think I'm going to use. None of this matters to you yet. I'm gonna keep playing with the stitch with me setup and try to find a better way to do it. But today wasn't a day where I could kind of put some of my plans in action. I will be filming another floss tube at some point, maybe this week, maybe next week, but not today. I just sat down. I just dropped my kids off at school here a little while ago. It is Wednesday, April 6th. And so today is Chatelaine Wednesday. So Maggie, kitschywips on Instagram, and I, several weeks back, started this Chatelaine Wednesday thing. And I'm going to start stitching as I talk. So I'm going to stop looking at you. But I'm going to explain kind of what's going on and why I'm stitching on my Chatelaine and stuff. And I need my readers. It's funny because I don't need these for reading. I'm 41. I'm almost 42. My eyes literally started going when I hit 40. I probably would not have noticed. I needed readers if it weren't for stitching. I actually, right around the age of 40, I started stitching on 40 count and was like, oh my God, I'm blind. Anyway, I need readers for stitching. They're not very powerful. I think they're 1.0s, but I do need them. So anyway, Chatelaine Wednesday. So what I'm stitching on right now is Egypt Mandala Garden. I have, if you've seen my other floss tubes, you've seen me, show my other patterns and kits. I love Chatelaines. I have probably at least a dozen of their patterns. I have several kits. I have several more on order. But I never seem to work on them, which is kind of a problem. And Maggie and I, again, that's kitschywips, she and I were chatting one evening about how we have these, fantastic chatelaine designs that never seem to get any love. And I think I've explained this on the past floss tube some too, but there's a lot of reasons for that. I think for me, they just kind of feel so overwhelming. I know they also feel like there's some perfectionism, or has been some perfectionism attached to them for me. They're so huge and they're so expensive, and I don't want to mess them up. And anyway, Maggie and I were chatting about how we kind of needed to get over this and whatnot. And that these, they weren't doing us any good sitting in a closet somewhere not getting worked on. And we really needed to do something to motivate ourselves to get them out. So we started Chatelaine Wednesdays. So every Wednesday, Maggie and I are bringing out our Chatelaine designs and putting some stitches in. It's just a commitment we've made to make some progress on them. I at least have no specific goals in terms of when I want it done or how many stitches I need to put in. The idea is just to put some stitches in. And I usually pull it out, just because it's how it works with my schedule, I usually pull my Chatelaine out kind of first thing after dropping my kids at school, and I basically go until I'm kind of tired of it, or I feel myself losing a little interest, or I need to move around and do something else. So most Wednesdays, I feel like I'm getting at least 2, sometimes 3 hours. The tail end of this just keeps getting knotted up. Like 2 to 3 hours of work in. And it feels amazing. It feels amazing to actually be making progress on this. To not be like so scared of it anymore. I know part of what was bothering me was that I am not going to be able to wash this piece. And if you've watched my other floss tubes, you know I wash. I wash everything. I started pre-washing the fibers. Now I have a lot of experience pre-washing hand-dyed fibers or hand-dyed fabrics, and I have a lot of experience hand washing or pre-washing Karen water lilies because that's what's used on Mirabilias. And generally that goes very well. On the rare occasion I have a piece of fabric that doesn't seem to want to cooperate, well, then I just pick a different fabric to use for a design. Well, I'm just checking my chart. My chart's over here. I have my chart pinned to my fabric. Usually it's pinned more like in my eyesight, in my line of sight, but so that it stays at least mostly off camera, I have it way over on the edge. Anyway, I started pre-washing fibers for this, and I wasn't really worried about how much work it would be, considering how much work the chatelaine is. The time it takes to pre-wash fibers didn't seem like that big of a deal. Here's all the fibers. So I do have a bunch of, this does call for quite a bit of DMC. The treasure braids you don't need to pre-wash. I say that. I've never had an issue with treasure braid or like kind of metallics bleeding or anything. But then there's thread gatherer, silken colors, there's Glorianas, there's dinky dyes, more Glorianas, there's water lilies. So I started the process of pre-washing some of these things I've never pre-washed before, and it just became obvious that this wasn't gonna work. These things were just leaching so much dye, and it wasn't lessening at all, and I did give up. I stuck at it for a while, but there didn't appear to be any end in sight. Oh, I just totally stabbed myself. Didn't appear to be any end in sight, and just decided, you know what, I think I'm just going to have to resign myself to not being able to wash this piece. I still may with other chatelaines, depending on like what the what color the silks are and stuff. I still may try pre-washing and see. It's possible for some of them that would work. I don't know, but I'll just have to see as I get there. But anyway, so yeah, this one I'm doing Egypt Mandala Garden. Now I'm not good at like following a prescribed stitching path. I feel like almost all chatelaines I see as whips on like Instagram or on FlossTube, people like seem to very religiously start at the center and work their way out. That's my center here. I didn't do that. I mean, I sort of did. I'm doing kind of like how I approach a Teresa Wensler. I got some of the like, what I think it was like the skeletal structure in. Some of these obvious, just kind of long, solid lines and things. And then I'm kind of hopping around. I'm staying in one general area. But I am hopping around a bit. And a lot of it just depends on like what color I might feel like stitching with. And I do tend to like put in the like kind of bigger blocks of color, or the colors that have more obvious like patterning to them first. These 2 strands I have down here are over 1 portions of, there's 4 fish in the middle. And I don't love over 1 stitching. I don't hate it, but it's like fatiguing. I can only do so much of it, and then I'm tired and kind of worn out with it. So I've been trying to do at least a little bit of over 1 stitching during like most of my stitching sessions on this, but I intersperse it with doing over 2 stitching so that I don't get too sick of it, too fatigued with it, too annoyed. But I also don't want to leave it all to the end. That would stink to have to, for me, I think, to have to do all the over 1 stitching at the end. My dog just started snoring, so I'm sorry if you can hear her snoring. See if I can, she's right there. You can't see her head, but she's right there. So yeah, I just thought I'd chat about my chatelaine and kind of whatever else is going on in my world. Please grab a coffee or whatever beverage you enjoy. You're stitching. Sit back, relax. I have no idea what I'm going to say. I'm just going to chat. I don't drink coffee, but I do drink hot chocolate. So I have hot chocolate. It's a chilly morning outside for us today in Pittsburgh. Not super cold, but chilly. So, yes, my chatelaine. Well, technically I have 2 as whips. Because I started the Irish mandala garden on St. Patrick's Day. But this is the one that I primarily am working on. I got my lance of floss a little messed up here. So this is the one I plan on bringing out on Chatelaine Wednesdays. And please join us. All of you who are working on Chatelaines, we'd love you to join us for Chatelaine Wednesday. Post your progress, cheer each other on Instagram, see how everybody's doing, especially if, like us, you have found yourself kind of resistant to pulling your chatelaine out or to starting it. You know, if you've been kind of scared of it, or, you know, worried about messing it up, or, you know, kind of hesitant to do it just because they're so expensive. I did get my kit at European Cross Stitch. I just appreciate the ease of that. I'm not affiliated. I just, like I said, enjoy how easy that is to just order everything from them. And I've never priced it myself, but I understand you do get quite a cost savings. They have a sale going on right now too, I think through like April 14th or something, where you get 10% off all your kits, which is awesome. The kits are, of course, super expensive, but a 10% off can really help. I didn't keep the label for this fabric, but I'm just doing my Egypt one here on like a natural linen. It's a, I believe 28, yeah, it might be 32 count. I'm gonna go with 32 count. I think it's 32. X's look a little bit smaller than what I usually get on Mirabilia, where I do 28. I hope all of you guys are doing well. Hope some of you are joining us on for Chatelaine Wednesdays. Oh, I was gonna say, so I stitch, and I've talked about this before, I stitch in lots of different ways. Sometimes I stitch in hand. I often stitch in a Q-snap. Sometimes I stitch on a frame, in a stand. This is actually not my favorite stand. The stand I'm using, I got off Amazon, I think, or maybe Etsy, and I think it's like, I want to say it's like K's Frames or something, but I'm not sure. Let me spin a little. That's what the top of the stand looks like here. It does have kind of like a swivel head, which I enjoy, but I use, this is not my favorite stitching stand, but I use it for this piece specifically, because my other stand does not work so well for this one. So I sit in this really wide, my chair here is this really wide, very comfy chair, and it's got these high arms on it. This piece is so heavy and so long. So this is one of the Omonic stitching frames, which I love. This one's very wide though to fit this entire piece. It is too heavy and too wide for this frame to handle. There's a base to it, and I might be able to adjust it to make it handle it a little bit better, but it has tendency to tip over. But this frame is so wide that the bottoms down, you can't see where I'm pointing, the bottom right here actually rests on both sides. It rests on the arms of my chair, and I basically just need the stand to hold it like upright, and then I can stitch two-handed. When I'm stitching like a Mirabilia that is not this wide, in one of these Omonic frames, I use a different stitching stand that supports the frame entirely on its own. But this stitching stand works for something this wide, where it's kind of resting on the arms of my chair. If you guys are stitching stitching Chatelaines, I would love to know what you're stitching. So feel free to comment down below and tell me what you're stitching. And if you're on Instagram, let me know what your name is so I can go follow you. I'm trying to keep up with all of the Chatelaine Wednesday posts, people who are using that tag. But I feel like I'm missing some. I'm not sure. And if you do post, feel free to tag myself and or Maggie, who's kitschywips, so that we can make sure that we, that we're catching your posts. And you might, I know you're far away, but you might be seeing like what I just did. I brought my needle around the front, so I use my needle as a laying tool. I don't have to do it for every stitch, and I don't railroad. I've had that question a lot. I don't railroad, but I do like my stitches to lay nicely and lay flat, especially in something like this, which I consider like an heirloom piece. Like this isn't some small little something that I'm stitching up real quick. Like it's not like a Minecraft character that I'm stitching real quick for one of my kids. Like this is like a huge investment in time. So I do take more care with my exits. So when I need to fix one or like make it lay nicer, I just use my needle to as like a laying tool to make it lay more nicely. I need to check my pattern for a minute, which I don't think you guys can see well enough to steal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Please pardon me while I count. It is a lot harder than it used to be to see dark. I'm stitching with DMC 939 right now. So much harder to see dark fibers and fabrics than it used to be. So I don't usually like talk much about my life, but I will give you like a little bit of life update and what's going on in my life right now. One reason I haven't filmed Floss Tube is here in the last few days. Well, a couple of reasons. There's been other stuff going on. One reason, not so great, I found out or determined last week that I'm going to need to have surgery on my ankle, which isn't going to be until later this summer. And I'm not going to go into all the details of it because it would probably bore you. But I'm just bummed. I'm not happy about it. It's going to be a really major surgery as ankle surgeries go. And it's going to have a really long recovery time. And it is going to affect my like ability to walk and function going forward. So I've just been bummed. And so not feeling kind of affected my stitchy bug. Just I've just been grouchy. And not feeling quite so much like stitching, I guess. I have been doing some other things. My surgery isn't until July, but once that comes around, that will, I mean, I'm sure that's going to affect my ability to, like, not to stitch, because I'm going to have a lot of time sitting down while I heal. I'll have a lot of time sitting down to stitch, but it will affect my stitchy bug, I would imagine, and it will affect what pieces I choose to stitch, because I'm going to be stuck in bed for like 6 weeks, and then some, really. So we'll see what happens when the time comes. I also doubt I'm going to want to be filming a floss tube from actually in my bed. So we'll see. I won't be giving up on floss tube. It just might be even more intermittent come July. Pardon me again while I count. So the other thing that happened that kind of reduced my stitchy time there for a little while, I'm called Fiber Art. I called my channel and my Instagram account Fiber Arts Amy because I do a lot of different crafty things. I also quilt and knit. I also spin, like spin my own yarn to knit with. And there's a place, I'm in Pittsburgh. There's a place in Pennsylvania, it's about 3.5, 4 hours away from me, called Redstone Glen. And they teach all kinds of fiber-related classes. They teach spinning, dyeing, and weaving, primarily. So I've never been into weaving, but I've been going to Redstone Glen for years, and I absolutely love it there. Just counting, make sure I'm on where I need to be. So I absolutely love Redstone Glen. They have a place to stay. I'm not affiliated. They're not paying me. I'm just saying, if you're into like some of these other crafts and you're in the region, you should check them out. It's an amazing experience to go do their classes. So a couple weeks ago, I went and took my first weaving class. I took rigid heddle weaving, which, I'm not going to you probably have no idea what that means because I didn't know what it meant until like 2 weeks ago. But these are like relatively small looms that you weave on. They're not like enormous floor looms. So anyway, I took this weaving class and it was just enormous fun. So it just kind of reignited my passion for some of my other crafts, for spinning, even knitting. I just kind of got my yarn back out again, and I've been doing a bunch more with that. So yeah, that kind of ate into some of my stitchy time too. Also, I know I've mentioned on some of my floss tubes, if you've watched them, I've been working on knitting each of my kids a shawl. And I have 2 of them are done, and I've been working on the shawl for my middle child. And his has just turned out to be very time consuming. I think it's also going to turn out to be my favorite thing I think I've ever knitted. It is amazing. It's just so squishy and soft and lovely, and I think he's gonna love it. But it's just, for me, a very time-consuming stitch pattern. So that's been taking up some of my time as well. when I do film my next floss tube, you're also going to get to see some new acquisitions. I have a few. Oh, you're going to love it. I have all of you out there, no matter who's watching, you're going to love it. I have some new, to me, adopted pieces of stitching. One that somebody sent me as a gift that's amazing, and I'm going to wait to show you and share exactly what it is when I film a normal floss tube so I can show you. And I also bought a, secondhand, already stitched, a lavender and lace piece, and I bought a Teresa Wensler. I got now the Teresa Wensler is not complete, and none of these are framed. I'm going to have to kind of figure that out on my own, which is fine. I ordered the mat board, or the foam core, rather, the acid-free foam core, to mount them on. Usually for pieces I haven't stitched myself, I will lace them myself. I will cut the foam core, I will lace them myself, and take them to the framer just for the frame. That just helps cut down on the cost. So the Teresa, I have a hard time stitching and talking. The Teresa Wensler piece, the seller, I don't remember how much these things cost. They didn't cost a lot. The seller was selling it as complete. It's one of her carousel horses. And again, I'll show you in my next floss tube. I could tell from looking at the picture it wasn't complete. And I did make an offer. I didn't pay like the full asking price for it. What I didn't know or couldn't tell from the description or the pictures, this person who had stitched this Teresa Wensler, and the carousel horse was mostly complete. The border was not. Like, some of the flat floral border wasn't, and a lot of backstitch still needs to be done. But I actually love that. I love the idea of finishing somebody else's stitching. Well, this someone had glued this Teresa Wensler to poster board. What? They glued it to poster board. Not like mat board. This isn't like sticky board. I'm talking like full on poster board. I was like, are you crazy? And I don't know what the glue was. I don't know if it was like a spray basting thing or like what, but it was glued down. I was able to remove it. And I don't think there's any residue. Whatever glue it was, I think must have been water-based, because I gave it a couple of very nice baths, very long baths, long soapy baths. That's one great thing about Teresa Wenslers. They just use DMC. And the occasional bead here or there, although this piece, at least so far, doesn't have beads. I do have the chart. I'll have to see if there's supposed to be beads added. And the occasional, like, small bit of metallic. But there's no, like, hand-dyed anything. There's no silks that you have to worry about bleeding. So you can soak these things and, not worried about it. So anyway, I believe I've removed all the glue. That was a fun surprise. The listing didn't say anything about it being, like, mounted on anything. I was really surprised when it showed up in, like, kind of a big box. And I was like, why is it in a box? Like, that seems like overkill. Like, I assume they might just, like, fold it up and stick it in an envelope. Well, it was because it was glued to poster board. Oh my goodness. Oh, the things people do. But I'm looking forward to finishing that. But I'm still working on, if you remember, I have a Paula Vaughn piece that I I also got secondhand that needs a lot of back stitching. In some of the X's, but mostly back stitching. So I want to finish that before I start working on the Teresa Winsler. I've been taking a little bit of a break from my Teresa Winsler. My stitchy bug's just been a little blah lately. I'm actually really glad for Chatelaine Wednesday. Excuse me again while I check my pattern. Because it really is motivating for me to get this piece out. And I'll probably stitch on other things today. I'm sure I'll also work on my son's shawl some today, at least put a few rows in. I'm getting close to the end. The hard part is that I'm for this shawl pattern, every row is longer than one before it. So even like with my son being like, oh, is it halfway done or whatever, and trying to explain, well, like, I've got half of the length done, bud, but like all of the rows get longer. So I have no idea how much longer it's going to take me to finish it. But I'm definitely getting there. I feel like I'm in the home stretch. So I'm sure I'll work on that some today. I've been trying to make sure I touch it pretty much every day. And this week especially, I've been really grateful for Mirror Monday stitching. Lisa at Cross by Floss started Mirror Monday stitching a while back. And I don't always manage to do it. But forgive me for a moment while I count. I do count and like recount. I think lately I've been really struggling to kind of find where I want my focus to be with my Mirabilias. I know I've talked about, like, I kind of feel like I should be stitching on red, but I kind of don't want to, even though she's my Mira that's like closest to a finish. And I think in my last, or one of my recent videos, I was like, I kind of threw my hands up and was, you know what? I just need to stop worrying about red. And I really feel like I want to stitch on damask roses, so that's what I'm going to stitch on. So the last couple weeks, and this week especially, actually, that's what I did. I pulled out damask roses, and I have to say I'm really, really enjoying it. Yesterday especially, well, I pulled it out on Monday. Like, Mira Monday stitching is what got me to pull it out. I think if it wasn't for Mira Monday stitching, I probably would have just knitted or spun. I've been doing a lot of spinning. But Mira Monday stitching really got me to get damask roses out and put in some stitches on her. And I'm so, so grateful that I did that and that Lisa started this, because it's really helping me at the moment while my stitching bug is kind of frustrated. I'm working on the top of her, where it's a lot more confetti. It's a lot less of like the block color stitching, and it's also a lot of skin. And I do my skin 2/2, but skin has just never been my favorite part of a Mira. I think it requires a bit more thought, because usually at the ends of rows, or at least at one end, you're having to decide like which fractionals to do to like smooth out the edge of the skin. It just requires a little more attention. Like I said, it's just never been, like, some people don't like stitching white. I don't mind stitching white. I feel like skin is kind of like my white. My needle came unthreaded. One good thing about this stand, it's not my favorite because it is kind of a pain to flip your stand over, or to flip your work over, more so than my other stitchy stand. But like, you can do it. It just like pivots. It's not that bad. Yeah, so yesterday especially though, I felt like I was starting to really see the face and the head and the roses she's holding and stuff come together. And that's just like highly motivating. I want to get this top part of her done while I have the Q snap where it is, and then be able to move down. I already have a good part of the dress done, but I'll be able to move down and do a lot more of it. I'll be moving into more of that like big block stitching. I still have the rose bushes to do as well, and those will be a bit more confetti, but that's okay, just little bits of it. And I did start the first rose bush, I think on Monday, like the first rose bush that I've been working on, and that was nice. That was really, really nice to start. Need to decide what color to do next. So staying organized on the chatelaine, I think, is key, and it's not easy. There's just so much going on. But stitching with all the silks is lovely. And you know, I'm getting to know the silks a little bit better. Like some of them are definitely softer than others. I'm so used to water lilies, and there's water lilies in this too. But I'm very, very used to water lilies. And I've also stitched quite a lot with the silks from You Stitch Me. I use those for a lot of smalls. I'm in her like Silk of the Month club, and so I get those. I have quite a lot of those, and I often go to those for like smalls instead of trying to get the called for. I just do a conversion to those silks. So anyway, I'm really used to water lilies into Brandy's silks, and I'm finding like some of these silks shred pretty easily. Some of them I have to use much shorter lengths with. They just don't last. Whoop. They don't last as long. You know, going through the fabric. Although I do have probably a relatively coarse fabric. It's a natural linen. It's possible it's something like a Lugana. I don't like stitching on Lugana typically, but it might be softer and easier on the threads. Pardon me again while I count. But yeah, it's interesting. I find it interesting to get to know these different silks. I tend to use a loop start. I know I mentioned before, even with variegated flosses, I tend to like a like blended thread look more than a like each individual X is a different color look. But when I'm on this frame and I can't see what I'm doing, I could flip the frame, but I usually just do the loop start by feel. So that's what I'm doing, like fiddling around in the back there. Yeah, I'm learning a lot as I do this. It's interesting and fun, and I love the colors in this one. There's all these like bright teal blues, and it's just so stunning. So stunning. If you guys are stitching chatelaines, I would love to know. I'd love to know which you're stitching, but also why. I'm very interested in why people choose those that they do. Because some chatelaines I look at on the website, and I'm drawn to because of the color. Like, I want to say Victorian Garden mandala, which has a lot of these like gorgeous teals. That one I'm drawn to purely because of the color. Like, it's just a visually beautiful piece to me. But like Egypt Mandala Garden, this one I chose because I'd like to go to Egypt. My husband does too. We've always dreamed of going to Egypt one day. Certainly it's not going to be any day soon, given a lot of world events, pandemic, political climate, all sorts of things. We hope one day it'll be safe for us to go, though. I've mentioned before the Amelia Peabody mysteries. I've read those. My husband's read most of them. And we're just kind of obsessed. And I would have loved to study Egyptology if I had been less practically minded, if that makes sense, in choosing what to study in like a career path. I find the area just fascinating, and I'd love to go. So that's why I chose this one, because of a love for the area. It has positive associations for me with one of my favorite book series and characters. And fun story about Egypt. So my in-laws, my father-in-law has passed away now, but before he passed, he and my mother-in-law used to travel a lot. They were retired. They would go on some of these really big tours and trips, several of them a year. And they traveled all over the world. Well, they went through a little period there where we were joking that they were kind of like a death knell for governments around the world. They were actually in Egypt. Oh goodness, when was it? The late 2000 knots or like 2010? I don't know exactly when it was. They were in Egypt when like the Arab Spring started. They were maybe halfway through their trip and their tour. They had to be airlifted out. They had to leave most of their belongings behind. I think they were each allowed like one bag. Like my mother-in-law could take like her purse and a bag out. They had to be airlifted out. We were very worried. There were like several days where we weren't sure where they were. We didn't know if they were safe. We didn't know if and when they were coming home. There was a lot of concern. They were safe. Everything was fine. The U.S. government got them out, got them home safely. But that kind of put a damper on our plans to go. My husband and I have had to postpone, thoughts of going to Egypt for a while. Probably be post children leaving the home sort of trip. But that's okay. But that's why I chose Egypt Mandala Garden. Please pardon me a moment while I count. Let me double check everything. And some of the others, a lot of the others that I've chosen. So I have the Greek Mandala Garden, and I bought that one because my husband and I took a vacation in Athens, and it was amazing. So I'd like to stitch that eventually as kind of like a remembrance piece. I did Ireland for the same reason. I've been to Ireland. It was amazing. But also, like, culturally, my family, my heritage is largely based in Ireland and Scotland, which is why I also got the Scotland one. And I'd love to visit Scotland one day. That's a dream trip for me. The dyer's garden, the tinctorium garden, mandala garden, I have that because I love to dye. I dye a lot of yarn. I've dyed cross-stitch fabric as well, but I do a lot more of dyeing yarn, especially wool yarn, and I've dyed wool felt. And I love like the study of plants and herbalism and stuff. So I have the poison garden and the herbal garden. But yeah, I'm interested why other people buy them. If it's more just like a visual thing, or if there's like an association with like the topic or the location. So yeah, if you don't mind, if you're sitting there listening to me chat, if you get the chance, drop a comment below and tell me why you choose the chatelaines that you do. I'm very interested. I'd love to figure out how to take like a real poll and find out for real like how people come to those decisions. Pardon me again while I count. And you know what? While you're at it, if you have a good setup for like doing close-up of stitching, tell me that too. Because I would love to be able to bring you guys closer in on my stitching. I think the setup works better, probably, than the last stitch with me I did. And I do want to try my other idea that requires the use of the stand that right now is in use for my chatelaine. I'm holding my stitching. I'd love to know if you guys have a great idea for how to do that. All of the fractionals really slow the stitching down too. Although, so I did read, I might get myself in trouble doing this, but I read all the instructions for how Martina wants you doing the fractionals for the chatelaine. And I pretty much decided no, that I don't want to do it that way. And I think I'm going to need to go back later and fill in some top legs on things. But anyway, I am just doing the fractionals the way I prefer to do them. And I don't know. We'll have to see. Doing the chatelaine is not going to be a fast process. That's for sure. And I'm actually hoping I'm going to be able to do chatelaine Wednesdays after my surgery. But I think I'm just going to have to kind of wait and see. I am going to have to keep my foot up. I do know what to expect to some extent because I had surgery on my other leg. So the surgery I'm having this summer will be on my left ankle. I had surgery on my right foot a few years ago. And the doctor said the recovery is very similar for the two surgeries that I've had. Or the surgery I'm having, the recovery is very similar to that for the surgery I already had. And last time I basically just stayed in bed for 6 weeks. I'm not allowed to put any weight on the leg at all for 6 weeks. So I don't think I'm going to be coming down here to my stitching chair. Last time I really just stayed in bed. People brought me my meals. I used crutches to go to the restroom and to get back and forth to the shower. We'll have to get our shower chair back out. This whole thing makes me feel very old. Like I have to have a shower chair to take a shower. And I tend to be very active. I really like exercise. I love yoga. I do the trampoline a lot, a little less so with my ankle causing me so much trouble. I haven't been able to walk as much because of my ankle as well. It's actually keeping me from doing certain yoga poses as well. But I do try to figure out, I know last time I was giving my doctor fits. Last time I had surgery because I was coming up with all these creative ways to like stay active and still exercise. And he was always just worried, like, it's not worth falling and damaging the foot we just fixed. Anyway, I'm sure I will find ways to do stretching and stuff in bed and try to keep some of my... There's not much I can do for the muscle in my left leg. There's a little bit I can do, not much. It'll atrophy a lot while I'm recovering. But there's things I can do to help the rest of my body stay fit. So I'm sure I'll be doing that some. But I will be sitting in bed a lot and just sewing, stitching, crafting. Yesterday I actually started to... This is how I manage my anxiety about surgery. I plan for all the fun craftiness for after surgery. So I started putting together like a bin of things I really want to start or work on post-surgery. Now I already have a million whips, of course, that I can draw from. And it's hard to plan too much because I don't know where a lot of my projects will be come the end of July when my surgery is scheduled. But I can plan a little. So yeah, anyway, yesterday I started kind of putting together a bin of things I'd like to do post-surgery. And I put in there, I put a bunch of books. I love to read, and there's never enough time to read all the things. So I put some books in there. I put Portrait of Caroline in blue, no, Portrait of Lauren in blue and Portrait of Caroline in pink, I think, from Marabilia. There's some older designs. I think they're probably out of print, but I have them kitted up. And I would really like to get to them. I think that might be like a post-surgery project. But my setup in my bed, I have like, my dog's stretching. I have a kind of a lap stand I can put on my bed and stitch with. And I didn't have that last time I had surgery. So that'll be cool. So I can stitch two-handed. But, it's not convenient for like all of my projects. So I'm gonna have to give some thought to like what projects I'll work on. And honestly, I would love it if I could finish Damask Roses before that. That might be a really big ask. But I think that's kind of a back of my mind goal, is to finish Damask Roses before surgery. Or have it so close to done that I can finish it easily post-surgery. I don't know. We'll see. Excuse me again while I count. And I just, like, I poke my needle up a little bit from the back as I, like, count over each of the squares. Yeah, for me, planning what to do with my time, because there will be a lot of time post-surgery, it kind of helps keep my mind off, like, the scary parts of, like, having surgery, and the stinky parts about having to stay in bed for so long. The last time I had surgery was actually when my stitchy bug like really came roaring back. So I've been stitching since about 2004. once I started having kids in 2010, I was still stitching, but like very intermittently. For me, stitching was not the first craft I was likely to pick up. The needles are just so, tiny. I know they're not super sharp, but they're sharp enough to hurt an infant or a toddler. If they just pick one up and pop it in their mouth or something, like I would hate for that to happen. And I'm not criticizing any of you who stitch around little babies. If you can do it, more power to you. I just didn't feel like I was kind of neat enough and clean enough and organized enough to feel comfortable doing it. So stitching definitely took a back seat. I did a lot more knitting, especially a lot of knitting on very large gauge needles. I felt more comfortable like stuffing those in a bag. When I needed to go parent, than kind of dealing with a cross stitch needle. I also did a lot of quilting. A lot of using a sewing machine, because that really was not, like there's no handheld needle. I wasn't sitting on a couch with a needle or something that I risked dropping. And there were a lot of fun ways I got my kids involved with quilting when they were little. So I was still stitching, but doing a lot more of other things more than cross stitching. But then, so when I had surgery on my right foot, I couldn't use my sewing machine. I suppose I probably could have figured out a way, but it would have been difficult. And also the thing about these surgeries is it's not just like not being able to use that part of your body. It gets very painful to have your leg under you. You need to keep your leg up. You can't like sit. Like this time it'll be my left leg, so technically I could use my right foot, I'm right-handed, to run the sewing machine, but I won't be able to sit at the table where my sewing machine is with my left leg dropped beneath me, at least not in those initial weeks. It would cause a massive increase in swelling and quite a lot of pain. It wouldn't be good for me. So anyway, last time I had surgery, I stayed in bed, and that's when my stitchy bug really came roaring back. I finished burst samplers for my 2 younger children because theirs hadn't been completed yet. Of course, my oldest, his burst sampler had been done since like the week after he was born. My younger 2, not even close. So I finished their burst samplers, and I also finished Scent of Old Roses. And then Stitchy Bug was like back with a vengeance at that point. So I know I will have significant time, but I also have a lot of hand sewing projects that I'd love to work on, a lot of English paper piecing, that's handwork. I know I've shown you guys the Hexie quilt I'm doing with my daughter. I'm sure I will work on that a lot. And I have other things too. There's a Tulip Pink English paper piecing quilt I've shown you. I'm totally playing thread chicken right now, FYI. I don't know why. I have plenty of thread. I shouldn't be playing thread chicken, but I totally am. I'm less inclined to play thread chicken with DMC. But this is silk, first of all. But I'm also so close to finishing this little motif, like this little section of it. And I don't like having to start a new thread just for one section, just take it somewhere else. I'm not going to be able to do it. I have some fractionals to do, but I'm not going to be able to do it. So I'm also I'd love for you guys to weigh in on this too. I am very cautious about my tails. Meaning I seem to think that they're like always gonna come undone. So I never just like put them under a few stitches. I'll either like put them under like a dozen stitches or like in this case like weave them back and forth if I don't have a lot of stitches that I can put them under. I always feel like they're gonna come undone. And then for metallics and beading, which are harder to anchor, they come out more easily. I really go back and forth. I think I'm gonna, so I don't forget those fractionals, I'm gonna do some more of that same thread. Probably gonna wrap this up soon. I've been talking for like an hour. I hope, you know, some of you enjoyed this, especially if you're doing Chatelaine Wednesdays. Maybe this will be fun to like put on and keep you company while we are working on yours. Those of you who aren't doing Chatelaine Wednesday, hopefully you don't mind just hanging out with me and listening to me chat. It'd be kind of fun if like, I guess I'm feeling like it would be fun or really great if like this demystifies a Chatelaine for you a little bit, because I'm just stitching. I don't like the idea of people being too intimidated by something to do it. And I say that as somebody who has been too intimidated. I mean, that was part of what was keeping me from doing a Chatelaine for a very long time. I know that feeling. I know what it's like intellectually, like in my head, and I'm sure some of you are the same. I know they're just X's. That's all they are. They're just X's. So it doesn't matter what you're stitching. Like, stitching one design isn't really any harder than stitching another design, because they're always just X's. But, we can do that loop start again. Some designs definitely take more focus, more concentration, more energy, more attention, you know, to do than others. Chatelaines are definitely like that. I was very intimidated by some Teresa Wenslers for a while, mostly just due to their size. Oh, let me count for a minute. Very intimidated due to their size. Mirabilias, I used to be so intimidated by, again, because of their size. And that's the reason why, like, some of the earlier Mirabilias that I did, that's part of the reason why I, like on Adia, I left off the wings. On May's Emerald Fairy, I left off the, there's like a little U of, I think, strawberry plants, maybe, at her feet. I think that must be like the plant or flower associated with the month. I left those off. And being intimidated by Chatelaine was part of the reason why I think I never, like, I wasn't picking up this piece to work on. So I totally understand the feeling. But I don't like the feeling. And I don't want other people to keep you or them from stitching things you want to stitch either. So please consider joining us if you like Chatelaines. If you don't like Chatelaines, I hope you still enjoyed hanging out with me for an hour. And please don't consider me an expert on them, because this is as much Chatelaine stitching as I've ever done. there's a lot of people out there with way more experience and knowledge than I have on chatelaines. So please, by all means, if you're looking for advice, seek out some of those people on FlossTube and Instagram so you can get some good support. Because I'm kind of just guessing and making it up as I go along right now. Oh, well, I was thinking about Mirabilia too. Again, Lisa at Cross by Floss, she has started, I don't remember the hashtag, but she's working on April's Blue Diamond for a stitch along. I don't remember her hashtags for it. But she's invited people to join her, I think either with that or like, well, I think with that, or maybe another birthday, or I don't know. Join her. Please feel free to join her. If I hadn't already stitched April's Blue Diamond, I would be joining her in a heartbeat. April's Blue Diamond is one of my all-time favorite Mirabilias. It is so stunning. I show it in one of my earlier floss tubes. If you're interested, I might bring it out and show it again in my next floss tube. Just to, you know, just for those of you who maybe don't want to go back and look at my old floss tubes. And if you're interested in, I'm just going to pause stitching for a minute. If you're interested in seeing what it looks like finished, the thing that I love about April's Blue Diamond is it's a very thin dress, but it's like if the dress were in real life, it's like a white slip dress with a sheer overlay, and the sheer overlay is what is full of beads. And the way Nora charted this design to show the like underdress and the sheer overlay, it's with the like embroidery and beadwork, it's just stunning. I wish that dress existed in real life. I can't be the only person who like looks at Mirabilias and was like, I wish that was my wedding dress. It's so beautiful. And I also love that April's Blue Diamond has short hair. I spent large parts of my life with extremely long hair, like down well past my waist. It's gotten a lot thinner as I've gotten older. So it's relatively short now. And I like the variety. I like seeing some of the Mirabilias with shorter hair. But go check out Lisa at Cross by Floss if you're interested. It's a beautiful design, and I feel like it's maybe a less intimidating Mirabilia if some of you are feeling intimidated there, because the dress is very thin. It's not like a huge voluminous dress. There's kind of like a tail that swooshes out at the bottom with a spray of roses, but it's not enormous. It's, I think, feels like a more doable piece, like a more doable kind of first Mirabilia. So yeah, consider joining her if you haven't. That's really it. I've just been like chatting. I don't know how many of you want to watch me just like chat and like stitch over here, but I'm gonna, I guess, go upload this. Hopefully it'll be up today in case anybody wants to put it on for this evening's Chatelaine Wednesday stitching. Certainly it'll be up before next Wednesday. This was fun. I like doing Stitch with Me's. I'm kind of self-conscious about it. I don't know that any of you want to like just sit there. I know some of you do, but I don't know how many actually want to just sit there and listen to me chat while I stitch. But hopefully some of you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down below if you'd like to see more of these. Or if you don't particularly care for them, as long as you're polite, feel free to tell me that too. Please be polite though. I've had enough of not polite on my channel and DMs. That's hard. But anyway, that's a whole other story. I hope you guys enjoy your day. I hope you're enjoying your stitching, whether you're stitching a Chatelaine or a Mirabilia or something else, or whether you're doing some other craft. I hope you're enjoying that too. And hopefully I'll be back here before too long with a regular floss tube. Thanks guys. Have a good one.